Thank you for joining us for another Tinuiti Fireside discussion. My name is Harry Browne. I'm VP of TV, Audio, and Display Innovation here at Tinuiti, and I'm joined by the wonderful Rachel Costanzo, who is the Senior Director of Media Strategy and Operations here at Tinuiti as part of our investment team. It is Tuesday. It is right after the Super Bowl, and so that is the big topic on the brain today. We are going to be talking all things Super Bowl, including the Tinuiti clients who ran in it, some of the initial insights that we've gotten out of this, amazing opportunity, and whether or not we think this is worth it, whether or not this is the right place for advertisers to be, investing their capital as we look forward to Super Bowl 60 next year. So with that, let me kick it over to you, Rachel. Can you tell us a little bit about the overall performance of the Super Bowl this year in terms of some of the metrics that we've gotten from our partners? Who was watching?
I would love to. Everybody was watching, as it turns out. So by now, we've probably all seen that Super Bowl 2025 broke the record, most viewed Super Bowl ever across all platforms. So I think, with the growth in NFL that we've seen over the past couple of years, live sports in general, but especially NFL, this doesn't necessarily come as a surprise, though it is super impressive. We're looking at almost 128 million viewers this year on average. I think what's really interesting is the Tubi viewership. This is the first time that a Super Bowl has streamed on a FAST channel, so it's been free versus needing a subscription to access the content. And we saw almost 14 million viewers that blew the previous Super Bowl streaming record out of the water by several million. And I think it's really wild to see the growth here. Tinuiti was really at the forefront of when streaming Super Bowl opportunities came to the marketplace and really helped monetize that with our broadcast partners. To see it now make up like double-digit percentage of total viewing is just really cool to see. And I think broadcasters for future games are really going to take notice about that difference with having it on a free platform, that increase in viewership, bringing in those new audiences to keep moving the needle, because it's just going to keep growing in that space.
I think that's a really interesting point about Tubi that you raised. And I think that 14 million figure is so incredible when you realize that it puts the streaming Super Bowl on its own on par with events like the Oscars. These are the other premier live events that we have every year. And just the stream alone to achieve that number, I think, is really impressive and speaks to some of the transitions that we've seen in the way that audiences have started embracing streaming sports and a lot of the non-Super Bowl developments that we've seen there as well. So really fantastic to see that kind of growth.
Absolutely. And I know we've had some clients take advantage of the streaming and across several other areas of the Super Bowl this year. I'd love to dig in a little bit more on what our brands did and how they capitalized on this moment.
Absolutely. This was a year that I think Tinuiti is very proud of when it comes to our engagement with the Super Bowl. It was our biggest Super Bowl year ever. We were lucky enough to have 6 different advertisers engaging in and around the Super Bowl this year. We had 3 advertisers engaged directly in the national linear feed. So we had Instacart, we had Poppy, we had Hims and Hers. We also had Elf as well. Hims and Hers and Elf actually engaged in the Tubi feed as well on the streaming side. So that was really powerful. And we also had a couple other advertisers engage in local linear and different ways of getting in and around the game for different price points. And I think that's a really important way that we have approached the Super Bowl. I think everyone sees that big sticker shock number, $8 million was the average cost nationally of a Super Bowl spot. Obviously, those things are subject to negotiation, but when you're talking about a national linear spot, this is a heavy investment. And for some advertisers, that makes sense. For other advertisers that were maybe earlier on in their journey, maybe that doesn't make sense. But that doesn't mean that the Super Bowl is completely closed off to you. Thanks to things like this Tubi simulcast, local linear opportunities, different OTT and digital opportunities in and around the game, it has never been easier to get into this kind of content and to surround this really impressive moment. And the effects really speak for themselves. We were starting to get those initial performance figures back from our advertisers. And I can tell you that one of the brands that we ran in the Super Bowl saw a 10 times lift in their site visit activity compared to a similar ad that they ran in the wild card round. And another one of our advertisers who also ran in the wild card round and then ran in the Super Bowl saw a 66 times lift in their visit activity. That is just an incredible jump in attention, in interest, and awareness. And that is the whole point of advertising directly in the Super Bowl. So there really has been that kind of gain that you would hope to see from an investment like that. And we, of course, are incredibly proud to have been a part of that.
Wow, 66%, like, or 66 times. That is wild. But you think of Super Bowl, even on the national linear stage, as like awareness only, but even being able to see in those top of funnel metrics, seeing that action happen during the Super Bowl is so cool. And it makes me think also, you were talking about all these different ways to get into this content, whether it's a fit for brands or not. It's also a great environment to test. Having that kind of that long view, maybe we do get there to the national stage at some point, being able to test into the streaming, the local broadcast, being really strategic about what's going to work for each one of our partners and having that long-term vision, I think is a really cool opportunity as well, with so many different ways to engage.
I completely agree. And so when you talk about all of these different ways to engage and that barrier to entry coming down, let me ask you the ultimate question. Is the Super Bowl worth it? Do you think that it makes sense for advertisers to get into this space as they look forward to 2026?
I have to say 100% yes. And I think that's across advertisers. There's several things that we've seen that are just brands cannot ignore. And it's really a fit for any kind of brand at this point. You look at even like female advertising. Like, we saw so many brands this year, Hers, Dove, Novartis, Nike, like my personal favorite, this increase in female viewership that we've seen. There's these brands who are talking to women specifically now. There's this whole untapped market that brands haven't focused solely on women. Now we broke record viewership in 2024. I'm going to guess when the numbers come out for this game, we're going to see another record viewership. So, female focused brands, they're getting in on the action. You've got brands who have their roots in D2C and performance marketing coming into the space. 4 of the first time brands to the Super Bowl this year are heavily rooted in D2C and performance marketing. So seeing them come into the space, it's not just legacy brands anymore. There's something for everybody. And then across the different platforms, not only those lower cost of entry ways that we are familiar with, local broadcast, streaming, audio, but also social, getting in on the buzz and the chatter that's happening. There were like 2.8 billion posts around Super Bowl this year. Getting into that content and the ancillary content. Fox pregame broke records this year. Even getting on the national stage, maybe it's not in game, maybe it's in the buzz leading up to the game. And then I think even in game, there's more value that's being offered to advertisers. ACR technology, allowing advertisers to capture those viewers and retarget them with messaging to move down the funnel. All of those things like give different value to different advertisers depending on their KPI and their budgets. So for everyone, there's a place for them in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that when you take all of those amazing opportunities that you just laid out and you marry them with different ways of accessing the game at different price points. So whether it's going in with a huge national linear ad or going in a more ancillary environment on streaming or on audio or in the pregame or in the postgame, that really opens the door to advertisers getting into that enormous set of attention, because there really is no other period of the year where you have so many eyes focused on the same event at the same time. But the other thing that I think is really important that makes this a possibility for so many advertisers is the ability and the growing ability really to measure the impact of these kinds of investments. So obviously you have the traditional metrics that we get from our partners at Nielsen and our partners at the publishers in terms of total reach and total viewership, but technology that's out there that we can leverage for search lift, for visit lift, for MMM and brand equity, so that not only can we see the impact that these ads have in the 5 minutes or 10 minutes after it airs in the Super Bowl, but over the long term and seeing those ad stock effects over the days and weeks after the game, those are really critical to building out the case that these investments have a return that you can bring to your leadership when you're going and trying to make the case for a Super Bowl investment, whether it be that big linear investment or something more ancillary. So when you combine all of that measurement with the different buying methodologies and this growing audience, it really just does make sense for the really vast ecosystem of advertisers who might be thinking about it.
Totally agree. And it's only going to get better.
So we'll have lots more content coming in the coming days as we get more data around the Super Bowl. But for now, Rachel, thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate your time and looking forward to Super Bowl 2026.